Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this session on HL software serving government technologies in the era of digital plus economy. So I have with me a very distinguished panel. We have two leaders who are driving significant IT innovation into major governments in India. Mr. Jayesh Ranjan from Principal Secretary in the Telangana government, which is globally well known for the adoption of technology. And then we have Mr. Manoj Kumar, who represents the state of Uttar Pradesh, which is clearly the most populous place in the world. I believe, Manojji, 400 million people live on the Ganges basin.
Ganges, yes.
Yeah.
Our state is 240 million.
240 million is part of that. So it's massive responsibility for IT in government. I have with me Jonas. Jonas lives in Bangalore, but he's Swedish. He's contributed significantly to Swedish government, and some of those collaborations will be Swiss government, and some of them we see are collaborating with Indian governments in India. And then we have our own KK, Kalyan Kumar, who is the Chief Product Officer for HCLSoftware. So good afternoon once again, and welcome to this session. And thank you very much for joining us on this panel discussion on implementation of government technology. My name is Rajiv Shesh, and I'm the Chief Revenue Officer at HCLSoftware, and delighted to be in your company. So as one sees that, in the digital age, the responsibilities that governments have in terms of G2C transactions is increasing. The relevance of data and artificial intelligence has been just immense. Some of the adoption is beginning to start, and some of it is already very, very advanced. We believe that in some respects, governments have been the first ones to adopt technology at scale and scale in the most optimum economical manner. The formation of the internet came from the government. The use of artificial intelligence has come from the government. And now we see the same being adopted all across in different segments of work. And now we're seeing the best practices in the digital plus era, where commercial organizations have engaged in dealing with customers. The governments are seeking similar strategies in engaging with citizens. So with that introduction, I would like to start a panel discussion with a first question to Jayesh. Jayesh, where do you see the most significant opportunity for governments to use technology to engage with citizens?
Thank you. Greetings to all the fellow panelists. Greetings to everyone in the audience. Thank you, Rajiv, for inviting me for this panel. See, I'll preface my answer by telling something else also, and then address the question that you've asked. See, countries around the world, particularly India, are investing a lot in creating digital infrastructure. You must be aware that in our country, we have this flagship program, which is called Digital India, under which thousands and thousands kilometers of optic fiber cable are getting laid, and connectivity to the villages, to the households is being provided. And of course, it is consuming billions of rupees. We are also doing the same. I represent a province in India, which is called Hyderabad. So in our province of Hyderabad also, we are doing the same. But what we have come across is that it's like that proverb that you can take a horse to water, but can you make him drink? So what we found was that we have started saturating villages after villages with digital infrastructure. But the most common experience is that, let us say you are a small farmer in a remote village. You went to sleep today, and when you woke up, someone told you that, hey, there is optic fiber cable at your doorstep. we have not seen people jumping with joy, array, there is some cable and he's rushing to the market to buy a tab or a laptop or a smartphone. In millions of cases, it doesn't even register. What is this optic fiber cable? What is going to do for us? So what now we have realized is that while it is important to create digital infrastructure, if you really want people to buy into that infrastructure, you have to do many more things. And what in our province of Hyderabad we have tried to do is to find what are the most pressing problems that people have been facing for generations. You have faced it today, your father faced it yesterday, your forefathers faced it earlier. And can we show that technology has a solution to take care of those problems? If you can do that, the buy-in comes automatically. The justification of spending billions of rupees to create that infrastructure happens. And eventually the society progresses because we know technology is a big game changer. No one disputes that. So I'll just give you an example now that we have decided to identify what are the most priority areas in the eyes of a common person. See, an educated person who lives in Hyderabad city, who has gone to college, who speaks English, who wears this jacket and tie, he can take care of himself. But as you all know, there are two Indias. There's this India and then there's a digital divide very clearly. And as a government, you have to be inclusive. You have to care for that India first rather than caring for the other India. So in Hyderabad, what we have chosen is, many people also may not know this, but agriculture is one domain which sustains the maximum amount of rural livelihoods. And we have decided to focus massively on agriculture. So in the last, let us say 3 years, we have identified 80 plus solutions which are enabled with different kinds of technologies. Some are IoT based, some are drone based, some are AI powered, some are using blockchain, some are doing data analytics, different kinds of technologies, but 80 odd solutions which have some potential to improve the efficiency of the farmer or reduce his losses or improve his incomes. And we are rolling them out one after the other. And many of these solutions have been sourced from startups, from young innovators, of course, from big companies like HCLSoftware and others. But this is the idea, that use technology in an area which will matter to the most ordinary person the most.
And Jonas, you've actually lived in two worlds, right? One which is been a beacon for use of technology in government services, and now in Bangalore, where you're seeing real population scale need for deployment of technology. So how do you compare the two environments and the needs, particularly, as Jayesh pointed out, that that there are these two clear segments of citizens and population that government needs to address. So how do you see this opportunity and the challenges that, because some of this represents, Manojji, you would also agree, a big part of the world, the East and then the South, as KK talks about. And come to you, KK, in a minute on that. Jonas.
Thank you, Rajiv. It's great to be here. And indeed, so I represent the Swiss government in India. I'm a science and technology diplomat, although I'm not a technologist myself. And I get to inhabit this world where I see India's digital public goods, the digital stack, the India stack, which is unprecedented to my knowledge, and at the same time represent the country that in the Global Innovation Index is ranked number 1, in the Digital Preparedness Index is ranked number 5. So the starting point to be active in the digital space for Switzerland is extremely high, but I would argue that the level of digital benefits that a citizen in India can enjoy is remarkably high, despite India conversely not ranking as high on these things. So what's going on here, and how can countries find solutions to providing services? In the end, the role of government is to serve the citizens, right? And we're here in Switzerland, where we have all of this know-how. But then, if we reflect how great is the adoption of technology in the government sector. I can make a very small example. If I were to change department within the government, I would have to change my email address. We don't have one email address at admin.ch that I can carry with me no matter what the department. And that means that if I change department, I change IT infrastructure. And so we're talking about interoperability here, one of the challenges. So governments are not known necessarily to be particularly visionary when it comes to technology, and the technology is moving at a faster pace than they're able to keep up. I think AI right now is a glaring example of that. We have lawmakers who are not conversational in the language of technology, or not as conversational as they perhaps need to be often, and that is a real challenge. So I would argue that what is really important for governments to do then in this is focus a little less about the technology first and think about the principles. So Switzerland is home to the Geneva Convention, for example. And there has been this movement some years ago from Switzerland in collaboration with some of the technology companies for a digital Geneva Conventions bill, because we need to think more ahead of what it means to be a person or a personhood in the digital realm. So actually one of the foreign policy priorities that Switzerland has is this idea of digital self-determination. You know, as citizens, we enjoy self-determination. We can have agency over our lives. But what agency do we have in the digital realm with all the data that is generated by our living online? How is that used in our interest, and how can we choose how it's used and how we don't want it to be used? These are questions that Switzerland is trying to push that are more philosophical and ethical of nature, but then of course have technology underpinnings. At the same time, I think all governments are doing similar things all over the world. They have instruments that they can create with incentives, with allocating funds. You know, you can do. Some governments are very fond of doing hackathons to get the technologists, match them with the challenge that a government agency is facing. How can we better provide services in X, Y, Z? But I would argue that before even thinking about the technology, there is some deep thinking that needs to happen on the principles, and perhaps across nations it would be good to focus even more intensively on what are the principles that we want to commonly operate under in the technology space, in the digital realm.
Thank you, Jonas. And Manojji, you represent the most populous part of the world, where the demand for services and government engagement is very high. You know, so tell us about the opportunity and the challenges that you see in your government in engaging citizens in this journey that you want to take, because it can actually provide a light to and lead to a lot of technology adoption in the state.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Manoj Kumar Singh, and I am Infrastructure and Industrial Development Commissioner of Government of Uttar Pradesh. And our population is 240 million. With this kind of number, you can't think of any other way of interacting or having a meaningful interaction with your citizens, which is other than digital technology. What I have experienced, that this technology has transformed everyone's life. It has improved the transparency, it has increased the speed, it has provided a different kind of scale. I don't agree with this that there is a digital divide in India. I will show you a small clip, video clip, and I have found that women in rural UP, they are so adaptive, they are so fast in adopting these technologies. You can't believe it. This JAM Trinity, which is called in Government of India, Jan Dhan account is the bank account number. Aadhaar, A stands for Aadhaar, that is the unique ID given to every citizen in the country, and mobile number. So these trinity of Jan Dhan, a bank account number, unique ID of the person, and mobile. This have created such a strong, powerful stack that today India is leading in digital payment across the world. It is combined China and Europe, what we transact digitally in India. So my feeling is that this is one technology which has brought a lot of transparency, and I don't see any challenge. I see a lot of opportunity in propagating it, and the way we are moving and the way technology is evolving. We were talking about laying cables, but now we are shifting to wireless kind of technology, and the digitization of most of the records in government, land records specifically. This has given unique opportunity of providing database to the people who can apply AI and come up with lot of solutions. So in my view, this has worked very well, and please view this small video. This is a video, we call it what happened during COVID. More than 4 million laborers who were working outside the state, they came back. And government used this technology to transfer subsistence allowance in their account in one go. It was not possible without using this technology. So during that period, all banks were closed, and even if they were not closed, in our state, it is not possible to have brick and mortar banking system in all the villages. We have more than 58,000 villages in our state. So government had selected one woman from each village, and we trained them, and we got them certified through Indian Banking and Finance Corporation, and they were enabled to do banking transactions in villages. And they, in last 1.5 years, they have done 80 million transactions, and they have withdrawn or deposited almost 2.5 billion US dollar equivalent of Indian rupees, and they have earned 52 crores of service fee or commission, you can say. They interacted with Prime Minister in a program in Prayagraj, Allahabad, and you see how they have performed.
Please.
Can we run it?
तो मानो मैं घूमती फिरती बैंक है, हैं? कैसे सम्मान मिलता है, मतलब क्या होता है?
लोग श्रीरामपुर ब्लॉक से है और हमारा गांव 8 किलोमीटर दूर है वहाँ से, और जब वहाँ पर बुजुर्ग जो ज़ईफ लोग हैं तो उनसे चला नहीं जाता, तो फिर हम उनके घर जाके पैसे निकाल के आते और उनको दुआएं देते हैं। तो हम ये कहते हैं, मैंने कहा हमें मत दो, हमारे प्रधानमंत्री जी को दो, जिन्होंने
बहुत ही मान और सम्मान मिला है। NRLM से जुड़ने के बाद हम इसमें इस पद पे कार्य कर रहे हैं, जिसके गांव में हमें बैंक दीदी के नाम से सम्मानित किया जाता है। अब कोई भी दीदी बैंक में जाने के लिए परेशान नहीं होती, सारे काम हम उनके गांव में ही निपटा देते हैं।
आप लोगों को मिलने जाते हैं कि लोग आपको ढूंढते हैं, कैसे करते हैं? जब जाते हैं पहले क्या करते हैं, कैसे बात करते हैं, मुझे समझाइए।
क्या परेशानी है, कैश निकलवाना है या जमा कराना है, फिर वो अपने बताते हैं, फिर उनसे उनका आधार कार्ड लेते हैं, आधार कार्ड से निकलवाना है तो आधार कार्ड डालते हैं, बैंक का नाम लेके, और फिर उससे पूछते हैं कस्टमर से कितना अमाउंट निकलवाना है, फिर फिंगरप्रिंट्स लगा के उनको निकलवा के और उनको अमाउंट बता देते हैं कि इतना आपका अमाउंट बच जाए।
ये जो सबसे वृद्ध व्यक्ति को जिसने सबसे ज्यादा मदद की, ऐसा कौन है आप में से? एकदम आखिर में बताइए।
ताई जी, आपको अम्मा जी बुला रही हूँ, उनके पास जाके माँ जी बताओ आपको क्या प्रॉब्लम है। बेटा हम बैंक जाने में असमर्थ है, आप हमारा काम घर पर कर दीजिए। तो मैं अपना सारा बायोडाटा लेके उनके पास जाती हूँ, फिर उनको पैसा निकाल कर देती हूँ, फिर पूछती हूँ अम्मा और भी कोई दिक्कत हो तो मुझे बताना, मैं आपके साथ।
तो सर हमारे यहाँ एक बुजुर्ग ऐसे हैं जो बोलते थे कि हम बैंक जाते हैं तो सिर्फ झगड़ा होता है। मैंने पूछा कि बाबा आपका झगड़ा होता क्यों है, तो उन्होंने कहा कि मेरा झगड़ा इसलिए हो जाता है कि हम बैंक में कहते हैं मेरा कैश जमा कर दो, तो बोलते तुम्हारा खाता ही बंद हो जाता है। तो हमने कहा कि आप अपना खाता नंबर दीजिए, आधार आपका हम लगाएंगे, आपका अकाउंट हम चालू कराएंगे, और आज से आपको बैंक जाने की जरूरत नहीं पड़ेगी। अब सर उनका जो है अगर धान बेचे या गेहूं, वो बनिया के पास हमेशा रखता था, लेकिन सर आज वो मुझे 50,000 ला के देते हैं, बोलते बेटा ये लो तुम बांटो, और हमारा जो सर हमारे ओडी में चला जाता है, और हम क्या करते हैं ओडी से ले जा करके उनके खाते में ट्रांसफर कर देते हैं। सर एक मेरी तो बचत हो गई कि बैंक कम जाना पड़ा।
50,000 रुपये आप लेकर के जाती हैं, आपको हिम्मत डर
सर जी सर मैं 50,000 नहीं, मेरा डेली का ट्रांजेक्शन सर इस टाइम 2.5 से 3 लाख है। मेरे पास एनी टाइम 1,00,000 1.5 लाख अमाउंट मैं रखती हूँ।
आपका?
सर नीतू मौर्य, मैं D ब्लॉक से हूँ।
पहले जब मैंने बैंक में काम नहीं करती थी सर, मैंने खाना बनाती थी और मेरा उतना इज्जत सम्मान नहीं था जितना मुझे अब बढ़ा है। हमारे गांव में
जब से सभी लोग जान गए कि ये बैंक खोली है, मैंने सबसे बताई हूँ, मैं उनके घर जा करके खाता भी खोलती हूँ और पैसा भी लेन देन करती हूँ। हमारे कार्य से वो लोग बहुत खुश हैं सर।
बहनों का ऐसा होता है, जब भी उनको काम का मौका मिलता है वो अद्भुत करके दिखाती है। चलिए, आपको मेरी बहुत बहुत बधाई।
See the kind of confidence with which they are talking to the Prime Minister. And this is all after a training of just 1 week, but work over a period of 1.5 years. Thank you.
Manoj ji, this is amazing, and you know, Jonas, you would agree that when transformation of this grassroots is required, I mean, the government plays a very significant role, and we can see that happen, and it's happening all over. Well, thank you very much for this perspective, Manoj ji. KK, I'll turn to you. I mean, you know, the government responsibility is immense, and the scale and scope of technology deployment actually just challenges the boundaries of a number of them. Also, the innovation required in terms of implementing, and Jayesh, I'd like you to chime in on this as well. The cost of implementation is a very important element in terms of how technology gets deployed. So, would like to hear your thoughts on that. And yeah.
I think brilliant video, and I think initial comments really brought out a couple of key aspects in this. And as we are in Davos, correct, and for the last 50 years, there's been a lot of policy shaping which has been happening from here, and I think creating an example of sovereignty and neutrality and ability to make things. You go back and see what technology has done. Many of us have experienced this. This is, some extent, what they are giving examples, and sometimes if you understand the language, you realize it was from a nightmarish situation to like, it's like cakewalk, correct? And what's really happened at the core is few things which technology is shaping. The digital public infrastructure, whatever is being created, is actually enabling this. It's basically the new highway, correct? You're able to ski, correct? It's the new slope, correct? They built all the building blocks. You can identify every individual digitally using their personal identifiable information. It could be fingerprints, it could be iris. It's highly secure. That database doesn't allow you to take anything. The only thing it will tell you whether who you are, yes or no, just a single response answer. Then they've transformed the way payments run. You don't need a Visa, MasterCard to transfer money, because every time you transfer money, you have to pay transaction fees. You've just eliminated the whole payment infrastructure. And to do all this, then you are building apps, and you talked about a lot of applications, correct? People are building. The way I really look at this is, once you build this GovTech infrastructure or GovTech platform, I see a lot of young crowd here. Every one of you have a smartphone. All of you download apps on your apps from your app store. This is new apps, government apps. Everything is an app. You can download an app. There are banks in India now. You can just open a bank account, do KYC. You don't even walk to the bank. You can completely digitally do everything end to end, and the records are kept, and there are a lot of apps being built. So the way I really see this is, government has to enable the next generation of digital public infrastructure. And then each one of us, whether we are enterprise companies, like we're doing something with our software products. We are a Make in India software company, built in India for the world. So we're doing something, as Rajiv talked about, software products were built traditionally for the West initially, and then they were retrofitted and configured to work in East and South. I always say the East of the earth to South. We started realizing that if we can build technology stack for this scale, then everything is a micro subscale implementation. So we're building technology capability so that if I can test something which works in 1 billion people, then I can take it to Switzerland with 10 million. I can go to Belgium, 4 million. I can take a subset of the technology. So basically regression testing, the way you build stuff, these things test you like hell, correct? This is scale. But again, the big factor is in an economic environment where spending is being thought through, cost of technology, as Rajiv, you said, needs to be affordable, reasonable, outcome and value centric. Very, very important. It's not about locking a customer into a proprietary licensing architecture and then fleece money out. So it's open. See, open source is, I would say, more than open source, it's open architecture. Can you be open? Can people be plugged in? And what we are doing as HCLSoftware is, we are building the application platform for people to build applications. So digital experience, multi-experience application development, low code, API infrastructure, application security, protocol connectors to what we're in India, there's something called ONDC. That's the next disruption which is happening, which is you don't need an Amazon or a Flipkart to do commerce. They're saying that, oh, commerce protocol, anyone can buy and sell using a D2C model. Now you need apps, and we need more younger people building apps, correct? As you build new apps, you think of an idea, plug into this infrastructure, build applications, and that's what we really want to think of building as part of GovTech.
Yeah, thank you, KK. Jayesh, Telangana has been, your government has been on the forefront of innovating with technology and adopting technology in a number of ways, early adopters. How do you see this, in terms of applying it in a manner in which you are using your taxpayer money in the most efficient manner to engage with citizens in the state of Telangana? And how do you prioritize in terms of, if one just looks at the scale and scope of engagement, it's so massive. How do you prioritize, these?
So, thank you. So I'll explain in a couple of minutes how we have gone about this exercise. So this is going on in our state for almost 10 years now. So what we have done is, as you would know, not many people will know this here, but in India, the governments are very complicated, very expansive. There'll be 30, 40 departments. Within those departments, there'll be agencies, and no one will know what exactly is the totality of the government. So what we have done is that we have constituted small teams whose only job is to work with a bunch of government departments and agencies and do a very immersive kind of exploration on what kind of services do they perform, what kind of processes do they follow, who are their stakeholders, how do they reach out to their stakeholders. And at the end of it, they come out with conclusions or recommendations on what is it that can be improved using technology. Can your stakeholder outreach be improved using technology? Can your internal processes be made more efficient using technology? So we get this kind of feedback from all agencies, all wings of the government. So obviously it's a very long list. We also find, after doing this exercise, that certain things are common. For example, everyone would like to have a very good CRM tool so that you are in touch with your stakeholders. Everyone would like to have a grievance redressal mechanism through which you get feedback, but you also respond to the people. Everyone would like to monitor the physical progress, financial progress on some dashboard. So certain conclusions or recommendations cut across all government agencies. Some would be more specific. So for instance, there is a department which looks after the growth of malnourished children. So obviously the kind of tools, the kind of technologies they will require will be very unique, will be very niche. But some others will require something completely different altogether. So we have done three things. Let me put it this way. One is that whatever is required for everyone, let us provide it upfront. So if everyone requires a grievance monitoring mechanism, everyone requires a CRM, let us give it to government as a whole. Then if there are solutions which are very niche to that department, see, as you would know, there is a very commonly understood principle called the 80-20 principle. I mean, 20% of your issues absorb 80% of your time and resources. So which are those ones? I mean, there's no use in boiling the ocean. Let us try to find out which, in your own perspective, is the most pressing requirement that you have. And there, if I can bring efficiency, I can show solutions that really work for you, we do that. And the third thing, of course, is that in general, because as you know, as you yourself have commented, ours is a state which embraces technology, and there's a huge legacy, almost 3-4 decades old legacy of using technology in the state of Hyderabad. We also encourage solution providers to keep telling us what is new happening in the rest of the world. So I don't know if you are going to ask any third question or not, but I wanted to tell something which I'll tell now itself. The benchmark that we are having is with the Republic of Estonia. So I have personally studied Estonia in depth, and there are 5 features of Estonia in terms of applying technology. what outcomes do they want to achieve. So I mean, these are very simple words, and these are all very self-explanatory. So it's not that I have to take minutes to explain what it is. One is presenceless. You don't need to go anywhere. Contactless. You don't need to meet anyone. Paperless. You don't have to physically submit any papers. Anytime. You can do your government transaction 24 hours a day and from anywhere. You don't have to be in that jurisdiction to do your work. So our intent is to reach as close to this objective as possible. So gradually I'm not saying that we are already up there, but in many of our government processes, we have done away with the physical presence of the person, as KK was mentioning, done away with the requirement of submitting any physical paper, done away with the requirement of meeting anyone, and you can do certain things 24 hours a day, and you can do it from wherever you are. So eventually that is how GovTech will end up in our country and possibly rest of the world.
Oh, thank you, Jayesh, for giving this perspective. There is something, Manojji, you mentioned, which was very interesting and caught my attention, is about the element of transparency that technology has enabled, governments to achieve. And we are in the World Economic Forum, where the theme of this session is rebuilding trust. And so I'd like you to reflect on two things, and Jonas, for you to chime in as well, because you see, the two areas, two distinct environments in which tech has been deployed. In terms of how you are leveraging technology to rebuild trust and connect with citizens, one example we saw. And second is, how do you see artificial intelligence being deployed in government applications to create a new, to improve efficiency and engagement with customers? Would love to get your thoughts on that. And we are a little behind time, so it may take us 5-7 minutes more, but this is a subject that is very important because the applications of AI can be quite phenomenal, right? So something that is rebuilding trust, engagement. And KK, I would like you to chime in on this aspect as well, AI particularly. And secondly, I'd like all of you to reflect also on data protection, sovereignty of data, because as governments who are responsible for trust with your citizens, how do you see data protection? So 3 elements in this. One is rebuilding trust. Second is the use of artificial intelligence. And third is, how do you protect citizen data so that they feel assured about the fact that, look, it's in safe hands? So
Thank you. Transparency I was mentioning about, it was in context of government vis-a-vis citizens. And that kind of transparency I was mentioning about. But the trust word which is being used in this Davos 2024 is about trust between nations.
I know, but I'm trying to use it in
different
this
things.
context, yes.
But my experience is that digital technology has helped a lot in building transparency and trust vis-a-vis citizens and the public and the government. We are basically an agrarian state, and we have around 26 million farming families. And now we are working on, two most important things which influence agriculture are information about weather and information about pricing. So now we are working on this, and this we are quite sure if we can deliver these things with some credibility to our farmers, information about weather and price, this is going to build huge level of trust between farming community and the government. So now we are working on that. AI, I will tell you one thing. The set pattern of government response is that if you don't understand anything, please control it or regulate it. That is how we react in government. AI thing is in that bracket at this stage of time. Digital technology may be there 10 years before, but now it is not so. Every government has realized the value and utility of digital technology. But with AI, people are still susceptible. So this kind of how to control it, how to legislate to make a regulated use of it is being discussed for AI technology. I am no expert on that, so I will not comment on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Manojji. Jonas?
On the AI front, I think the most interesting application of AI in the government space that I've seen so far is it's civic tech. It's not government tech per se, but it's in India, from a group called Agami, who are using artificial intelligence whereby an illiterate farmer who only speaks his local language can use his dumb phone to make a call in his native language to make a query, what services are available to me, and the artificial intelligence translates that and runs the translation into a GPT model and gives the answer, and the answer is translated back and orally reproduced on the phone call, answering what services, what government services are available to a person who otherwise would be excluded from the government services virtually, and then can fill in an application for the services that they qualify. I think this is the most advanced use case that I've seen, and I would argue that advanced use cases often come from the places where we perhaps are least likely to expect them from, or also least likely to look. You know, there's another example, not in the AI space, but one of my favorite GovTech projects that I've come across. It's several years old. It's called the Zanzibar Mapping Initiative. Zanzibar, part of Tanzania, East African island, didn't have an updated map of its islands, of the two main islands, since 2004. And the last time they had those maps, they used airplanes and satellite images were not readily available. So they used airplanes and had to fly, and it cost them $2 million to do it. And what they could do with the satellites, they did, but because of the cloud cover, you cannot do so much. So they used drones instead. And with the World Bank and a budget of $200,000, they mapped the entire two islands of Zanzibar using drones. And that was the first phase. And that became the world's largest drone map. And you think, oh, what's so special about a map? Well, if you're a government, a map is
very important,
is pretty quintessential to some of the services that you do. And then next layer, artificial intelligence. You know, you need to identify, do you want to manually identify what each dot on the map is? Is this a building? Is this a shack? Is this a garden? No, you want to have technology to do that. So you want to use artificial intelligence, computer vision, to read that map and interpret it for you so that you can make a cadastral map. And then, of course, you can do all the government things that you want to do with that. Urban planning in the face of climate change and rising sea levels. Cadastral mapping in the face of taxation and revenue generation. So again, not places where one would naturally go look, but you see enormously interesting projects in that space. Lastly, to the point of trust, very important topic and very dear to Switzerland. Switzerland has privacy very much enshrined in the operating system of the citizen, perhaps more so than, I would argue, almost any other country on earth. And trust is, you need to get something that is of value of you, and there are byproducts of using technology, and of course knowing that harmful things may happen with those byproducts, or that there are vulnerabilities to cybersecurity threats, and not just at the level of individual data, but we have critical infrastructure, whether it is a dam or the energy grid, that is extremely vulnerable. And we're not in a position of high trust around the world right now, and I think digital technology, and if we look at the role of social media in particular, has played a large and relevant role in this driving society apart, and so there's a lot of mending to do on that, and I would argue technology can only be a smallish part of the solution.
Yeah. Thank you. KK, you get challenged by Manojji, Jayeshji, and large public sector undertakings, you would have seen, on data protection. So, and the way data needs to be managed, and AI,
I want to chime in on AI first and then try to data. And I think, and this, looking at the current crowd, every one of you are using so much AI, sometimes you don't even know, correct? There's enough AI. The phone in your pocket, you roll 30 years back, to get that compute power, you had to be in the data center. You have as much compute power on this, which is like crazy. You could do amazing things. But all of you love Spider-Man, correct? What did he say? With great power comes great responsibility. And that's the most important thing. Sometimes to learn, you can just learn from fiction stories. We go back to our own ancient stories, correct? From deep in Eastern India, correct? We always did back to story. And the reason is trust is established. All these things foundationally, if you start to look at AI, explainability in AI is a big, big thing today. Because these technologies are big, and I think Manojji brought this point, that the fact is, when you look at a broad spectrum view of a government, they have to cater to every possible scenario, correct? You can't say this and that. Explainability is a big issue. You don't know a large language model, the way it hallucinates, what it does. There are things which can happen, correct? It's like, you know, so you need to know certain extent. Will we be able to know everything? The answer is not today, but are we progressing in the right direction? I met a very interesting startup which is actually using blockchain, tying it with explainability, which means that any AI activity will be using a open blockchain ledger to be able to use that they can track and trace use case on AI. But I think the advantage of using AI in land records, for example, you do land records, you map it with drone image footing, and then you tie it with blockchain. You have non-repudiation of the transaction, correct? There is our big challenge in a state like UP, correct? What you talk, people had those issues on paper, correct? Now, as they're digitalizing it, the chance of doing fraud is going to completely become next to zero. Now you tie it to blockchain, there is no even defrauding. How do you do this, Rajiv, is trust is built, and I think at every layer. The video was really an example of trust. By the way, there are so many trust examples if you read the footage, as Manojji showed. People who never trusted anyone are trusting a person because they're enabled by the jam, correct? The jam is building the trust infrastructure. But in data protection, the most important thing is the world today is each one of you can choose how you want to be, how much data you want to give away. People give away some level of privacy, of their own privacy by choice in some cases, or by cases not by choice, by unknown means, in return to get access to digital services. You use TikTok, use Snapchat. You want to use Snap? Because you like snapping, correct? That's what's the. But now what happens in Snapchat? You start to create a Snap location. All your friends know where you are, by the way, correct? They can track you on where the Snap map is. Now, it's your choice. So I think the way the data protection is going to evolve is few things. The first thing is you need to start to understand sovereignty. What data, tagging, annotating, and classifying of data is becoming very important. Second is this whole concept of permission-based. Each one of you as an individual have a choice. I think Apple did an amazing thing by small feature update in iOS, where they said every app when it gets installed before it used to track you. Now it tells you, ask the app to track, not to track. Same thing enterprises have to do, Rajiv, permission-based marketing. The whole world is about bombarding you with campaigns, and you can have a choice of what you want to know, how much you want to know. And then the underlying Data Protection Act, the way it is being built in, the world is going to be in a hybrid, multi-cloud, edge, all those scenarios. But that's purely because when you start to look at GovTech and governments, they have to cater to very large scenarios which you can't even control. And as the trust gets built at every this thing, Data Protection Act is going to be important. And Switzerland has been an amazing example of showing sovereignty, neutrality, but also bringing strong data governance and data protection. Citizens are significantly empowered in a smaller population, but empowerment is, you're pulling it back. You're making politicians accountable to you, correct? You have a very different system. It's going to build over a period of time, this technology. And what India is doing with India Stack is it's doing at planet scale. It's like, it has a different scale. And if you're able to use digital technology and what's being done, I think that's the reality of what we'll end up with.
I did want to ask this panel about cybersecurity.
Rajiv, could we bounce any questions
But
from?
that's exactly what I was coming to. We've got an audience like this, the Gen Zs, and we have got an absolutely illustrious panel who practice and deliver technology in government. So if any one of you have got questions to ask these gentlemen on anything that you would like to learn, you've got the best in the world right here in front of you. Anybody?
Yeah.
Making banks and everything, making it digital and having apps where you can access things, do you see any danger in that? As in, like for cryptocurrency, for example, you don't know who the person is that has the money.
I would say, maybe let Jonas give some perspective, but crypto and banks are two different things. Crypto, and that's why Summer Davos, if some of you would have seen, was all about crypto, but it's all about figuring out how to regulate this. It's never going to be regulated. Banks is built around trust. You always trust a bank, correct? And that's the reason there is a banking system which is built on trust. Cyber is going to be important, and cyber is not the responsibility of the government or just each one of you have to be cyber aware. In your schools, you have to be taught cyber responsibility, because each one of you have to become self-secure before the infrastructure becomes secure. You can be the biggest loophole in cybersecurity. So each one of you have to do your part. So I think that's where the trust gets established.
So I wanted Manojji to answer this question.
In this bank transaction, which that agent was doing, there was 2 levels of authentication. One, she herself was authenticating that particular machine is being used by this agent. And then she was taking biometric of the person who was withdrawing the fund. So these 2 authentication are happening before money is getting transacted.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much,
Thank you.
everybody, for your valuable time, and
Thank you.
an awesome
Thank
session.
you.
Thank you.